I got to ask you about the Bitcoin ETFs. I know you're a major proponent of Bitcoin. You have this wonderful argument about 1% of your money in Bitcoin, but the fact is there's no Bitcoin ETF. Bitcoin has suffered from the lack of a Bitcoin ETF. Trading is way down. We've got several that are in registration with the SEC, but they've made it very clear what their concerns are. Handicap this. What's the chances of seeing a Bitcoin ETF?
It's virtually certain. The only question is when, and I don't know how soon it'll happen. The SEC has several legitimate, thoughtful concerns that the industry has to overcome, but I'm confident that they will. And eventually we will see a Bitcoin ETF, and it's at that stage that I will be much more comfortable recommending that ordinary investors participate.
And how, again, the SEC's principal concern, there's two of them. Number one is custody.
Yes.
You have to show us that you have a secure chain of custody, just like the stock market does and everybody else. And number two, overseas trading, where most of the prices are set on platforms that we don't control at all. These are not easy things to overcome.
True, but we've got some serious players. Fidelity has made a major announcement in the custody issue. We've got Kingdom Trust and a number of other very serious players on the custody side. I'm confident that in very short order, Van Eck or Bitwise will satisfy the custody concern of the SEC. Manipulation is another one. I put Bitcoin in the same category as oil and gold. Globally traded assets beyond the control of the SEC, and the SEC is just going to have to shrug and say, that's the way it is.
You have a very interesting point about the 1% argument, and we only have a brief period to do this, but explain why 1% is worth it having in your portfolio, given how volatile it is, and people say, no, you can't, it's not appropriate for my investment.
And it's because of the volatility. It works to your advantage. Instead of having volatility of 2 or 3% a day, this thing, typically you can see go up 10 or 20% in a day. We've seen 1,500% in a year. And that ridiculous level of volatility is what makes the bet, if it wins, a huge winner, but if it loses, it's 1% of the portfolio. It's immaterial.
It's really a numbers game. It's actually an interesting argument, and the volatility is the key. So if you get up, 20%, you're all of a sudden now you're up nicely for the day on that investment. But if you're down, it doesn't.
It's an alternative strategy, and the thing is, there's pent-up demand. We interview advisors all the time. 74% say they've talked to clients about their interest in Bitcoin. So they need to step up when this happens, because that money's going to go elsewhere, and you want to make sure you manage that as part of the pool.
One thing we're quite certain is the business overall is going to grow. 3.6 trillion. We've been watching it grow year after year, and I agree with the point that you've made before. Getting the 401k business, just handicap that for us quickly. How far away are we from getting big money going in?
It could happen tomorrow.
ETFs from the 401k.
Technologically, regulation-wise, it could happen tomorrow. There's no particular motivation because the powers that be in the fund industry have no incentive to give up their market share.
And why bother? Well, that's going to be the next great breakthrough. And you're right, that'll be like the 1980s were for the mutual fund industry. Gentlemen, thank you very much.